quorum.
We have a quorum.
I guess we can officially now kick this off, and I will have to keep my sea level rise comments to a minimum so that no one later says, well, he said in an official capacity that.
Yeah, it's all on film, right?
Exactly.
Well, I just got back from seeing a volcano.
All right. You were in Hawaii?
Yep.
Wow.
Yep. We were up on Mauna Kea and looked right down into Mauna Loa and Kilauea.
Wow. Well, welcome back.
Thank you.
And
yeah, that's a way to start a meeting. This side is back from volcano.
Yeah.
Hopefully there's no eruptions here tonight.
Okay.
But we're gonna call this meeting to order. It is Monday, December 12th, 2022. And this is the Albany Arts Committee meeting for December. And we're gonna call it to order starting with the land acknowledgement. And if I can ask the vice chair to go ahead and
I apologize, but I have not got it in front of me. I don't even have the agenda.
Oh, well, pull that up. It should be in your email, and I will go ahead and read the land acknowledgement.
Thank you.
In the meantime.
Thank you.
The city of Albany recognizes that we occupy the land originally protected by the Confederated Villages of Lisjan. We acknowledge the genocide that took place on these lands and must make strides to repay the moral debt that is owed to this indigenous people, specifically the Ohlone tribe. We thank them for their contributions, which have transformed our community and will continue to bring forth growth and unity. The city of Albany commits to sustaining ongoing relationships with the tribe and together build a better future for all that now make this their home. The second item on tonight's agenda is the approval of minutes. So in order to do that, we need a motion to approve the minutes.
I move to approve the minutes.
And do we have a second?
I second.
Great. And Joy, can you please take a vote for us?
Yeah.
Oh, sorry to interrupt. I think we missed the roll call, actually.
Oh, you are absolutely right. I just completely flew into that one.
Sorry for my lateness to that.
That's okay. Sorry for my missing that one there. Joy, if you wouldn't mind first starting us off with the roll call.
Okay. Chair Gatch.
Here.
Member Bergman.
Here.
Member Bowers.
Here.
Member Goodman.
Here.
Member Samansky.
Here.
Member Shaw.
Here.
Member Rexel.
Here.
Great. Well, we have quorum, and do we need to second the or make a motion to approve the minutes again, or can the previous approval or the previous motion still stand?
It should still carry over, so we could just do the roll call for that.
Great. So
I just had one update on the minutes, which is that it should have been the mural subcommittee, plural, not singular. But outside of that, everything looks good to me.
Okay, staff can make that change.
Thanks.
Thank you, Sean. Any other changes to the minutes before we move forward? Okay, great. Joy, then over to you for the vote.
Chair Gatch.
Yes.
Member Bergman.
Yes.
Member Bowers.
Yes.
Member Goodman.
Yes.
Member Samansky.
Yes.
Member Shaw.
Yes.
Member Wexel.
Yes.
Okay, great. The minutes have been approved. And we will move on to agenda item number 3, which is public comment. And again, for any members of the public in attendance, as a reminder, this is for anyone who desires to address the Arts Committee on an item that is not on the agenda tonight. And then please note that you are limited to 3 minutes. Do we have any public comment at this time?
No public comments at this time.
Okay. Then we will move to agenda item number 4. This is staff and committee member announcements. And we'll start with staff. Are there any staff announcements tonight?
I do have one announcement, actually. So it is getting close to the end of the work plan, as well as the elections just happened. So we just want to remind members that the appointed terms do end typically right after the municipal elections. And we do ask members on the committee to stay on at an intermittent term for up to 45 days afterwards. So that did happen on December 8th. So to carry through till about the middle or closer to the end of January. And this is more to help serve on the board until the certification of elections happens, until you're either reappointed or replaced. As well as I do want to remind everybody as to if you're interested in continuing on the board, you do have to reapply. This will be on the city website as well as through the city clerk's office page. And feel free, you can always reach out to me if you need any additional help with that or have additional questions.
Great, thank you, Keenan. And do we have any committee member announcements? Member Goodman?
So as I mentioned last time, I am not reapplying to be reinstated to the committee. So effectively, this is my last meeting of the Arts Committee. And I just wanted to express my appreciation to all the members of the present committee and the committees that I've served on. I think it's been 12 years or whatever since it's been a long time. And I just wanted to not exactly leave you with any great words of wisdom or lessons learned, but when I started on the Arts Committee, there was no public art master plan, and we have that now. That was quite a bit of work to get that through, and I think the document, for all of its imperfections, has served the city quite well. It's unfortunate that in the last several years, there's really not been very much money at our disposal to create epic works of public art. We've been able to dole it out in little bits and pieces and kind of keep the spirit of art alive in Albany. But the big project still remains to be done. And perhaps as economic conditions improve, there will be more money in the fund to enable that to happen. One thing I wanted to mention is that for me personally, it has been sometimes terribly frustrating dealing with the bureaucracy and the notion of transparency that is required whenever public funds are being expended. I understand why sometimes it takes such a long time, but I often have found myself wishing that it could move along a little bit faster. One thing I've certainly learned, though, is that the city, and not to anthropomorphize it more than necessary, but the city is a rather lumbering beast that is reluctant to change direction or do anything new, and certainly not to strike new initiatives. I imagine that's possibly partly attributable because of all the different pieces that need to work together in order to accomplish anything. Inertia has a lot to do with it. I don't think there are any people in the city of Albany, at least in the city staff, who wish art to fail in Albany, for us to be a sterile Eastern European type communist city. But on the other hand, I think a lot of people in the city, particularly in the upper levels of government, are a little bit wary of losing control and having things in the hands of a crazy, undisciplined artist that might come back to bite the city in the butt. And I can understand why they might be reluctant to do that. But I think what it means is there's a bit of an uphill battle. There's certainly a lot of tension between art as a personal initiative of creativity, discovery, and imagination, faced with a city bureaucracy that is actually the antithesis of all those things. What it means, though, is that the city is going to be there as that sort of presence for now and forever, and it's up to the people on the Arts Committee to put a lot of energy into the various projects to make sure they happen. I think that's the only way that art is going to succeed. The energy really has to come from the Arts Committee. There has to be constant pressure and a constant willingness to engage with the city to make sure they understand how important art is and how it has a lingering positive effect on the lives of everyone in the community. And so I would encourage everyone on the Arts Committee to, stay the course. It will be frustrating and very, very slow, but in the end, I think it's going to be worth it. And I can say with a lot of confidence that none of these great things that the Arts Committee has planned are going to happen without the people on the committee really making an effort to engage the city and push it forward, and just stick with it. It will be frustrating and slow, but really got to stay on the city's case to make it happen. So with that, thank you.
Thank you, Peter.
Peter, I have to call you out slightly because you contradicted yourself by saying you didn't have any real wisdom to bestow upon us, and then proceeded to bestow quite a bit of wisdom. And I appreciate that and your diligence and your endurance in your commitment to the city and to arts in the city. And without a doubt, I know I mentioned this last time as well, but your presence will absolutely be missed on this committee. And for that, we thank you, of course, and also hope that you'll circle back around at times, maybe show up in the public comments to whisper more wisdom.
Restrict me to 3 minutes.
Yeah.
I should mention, well, thank you, Chair Gotch. And I do have quite a lot of material that really should go over the city for archiving. So I need to sort through it and get it organized, but I will turn it over.
Great.
So somebody has it.
All right. Well, now I just have to extend this meeting infinitely so that we actually never fully get rid of you. Just leave it running. We'll just
I'm gone.
keep it going here. Well, thanks again. And any other announcements from staff tonight, or from committee members tonight? All right. Well, we will then move to agenda item number 5, which is presentations. Do we have any presentations tonight, Keenan?
No presentations tonight.
Okay. Then we will move to agenda item number 6. This is discussions of possible action on matters related to the following items. Item 6.1 is the Poet Laureate program. Item 6.2 is the Sculpture Loan program. And item 6.3 are subcommittee reports, if subcommittees have them tonight. So we will open up with the Poet Laureate program.
Emily, can you take that?
Yeah, I'm looking at I was looking at the report that okay. The committee met last Monday. Was that last Monday or weeks? I think it was
Monday before, wasn't
it was the Monday before, yeah. And okay, yes, because we've got November 28th. So we met with I'm looking for the report that that we sent to
Can you share that
Keenan.
report, Keenan, on screen? Is that?
Yeah, of
Yeah.
course.
Okay, because yeah. Oh, right. There were 5 members on the. I'm looking for my memo because oh, right. Okay. I was chair, Pamela Lim, Rebecca Black, and Peter, who were the other? There were 5 members, myself, and this is the memo, but I don't see the list of people here. Okay. Sorry. We all read the application. We read the poems submitted by the applicant, Sheila Rapunte, and looked at her CV. And the conclusion was that we only had one candidate, and the decision was that she not be advanced and that the poet laureate position be reevaluated because one of the problems that was discussed and that everyone agreed that the candidate really didn't have the kind of experience that would with the kind of writing, but also the kind of public occasions and the kinds of events that would qualify someone to serve as poet laureate. So we decided not to advance the candidate and also to reevaluate the description and the qualifications as they're described in the materials for the application. So that's the, should I go into any more detail about the vote or the, yeah.
I think that's a good place to start. And then if
Okay.
we can, committee members can ask questions. And following questions, if we have public comment, we can get public comment and then circle back for a final discussion if there's action that we are looking to take tonight.
Okay.
So maybe we can pull this down for right now, Keenan, and then just open it up for discussion, and if or for questions rather, and if there are items where we need to review that document again, we can ask you to pull it up again. So at this time, my first question is there an anticipated action that we're looking to take tonight?
Oh, I thought, my understanding was that the committee was going to make that the Arts Committee needs to vote on whether to accept this decision or not.
Okay,
is that
great? Yeah, I think it's important just to clarify that.
Yeah, okay.
And then I know that the former poet laureate for Albany was on the panel, was on the search committee. Did she or any of the other committee members have a sense of why they think the search failed? Why
Yes.
why we weren't able to attract applicants?
That I think someone's trying to talk, but I don't hear any. Are there any comments? Other?
I just are you able to hear me?
I am. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I just asked if there were any.
It is a good. I think
of what we would need to change to attract
well,
potential poet laureates in the future.
Yeah. One thing that can I quote the previous poet laureate made a couple of comments that I think are useful. That Albany is a small town. That there are counties. I don't know. And larger areas that have poet laureates, but it may be that sometimes we just don't have enough poets, that we've kind of run out of eligible poets or people who are prepared for this kind of role, and it is difficult. So I think what her comment was that generally that we may not be able to find a poet laureate every 2 years, and she served a double term. So yeah, the announcement, I don't know if in other years there have been more people applying, and I'm not sure how we could advertise this more widely.
Is it possible, for instance, to have an open submission process, a rolling submission process?
I suppose that would be, we extended this a couple of times, so it seems like that might be a good way to continue outreach when we don't have a poet laureate.
Chair Gotch, what would a rolling submission process look like in the case of someone who is intended to fill a position for a particular term?
I'm thinking of it in relation, I think the obstacle is trying to figure out how the panel meets to consider that appointment. There would have to be something set in motion where, right now, if there's a community initiative to do a public art project in the city of Albany, they can submit that at any time, and it would come before the arts committee to review. And I'm wondering if something similar could be done for the poet laureate, where we would review submissions as they come in, or alternatively, we would review submissions perhaps twice a year. So all of the submissions captured between January and June would get reviewed at the end of June, and all of the submissions captured between July and December would get reviewed that time of year.
I guess it would, something like that would depend on the nature of the position and what the responsibilities were. Currently it's kind of designed to be something that's carried over a period of 1 year, 2 years, with specific tasks meant to be completed within those time periods. But if it's simply a matter of attracting poems of an occasional nature by...
No, not poems, but poet laureates. So for example, even if we had the same start date, even if the start date was January 1st, extending 2 years from that point, it seems to me that there's two components: that we have to collect applications and we have to review applications. And if we are able to collect enough applications and review them, and identify someone who could in fact perform those duties, then we could assign a 2-year start date from that point moving forward. And rather than always extending the deadline for this collection of applications, I'm wondering if we can't simply have an open application period throughout the year, and then be reviewing those as they come in.
See. I guess another part of the discussion is having a position that is attractive enough to, that a poet of some stature would be interested in applying and doing it. And I think that was one of the issues that came up during the panel discussion: is what is this poet expected to do, and is this an appropriate use of the position to do what's been laid out for them? Should that be rethought in such a way that there's more engagement with schools or with the community, that sort of thing. My feeling is that what you're suggesting wouldn't necessarily change the fact that maybe there aren't enough poets in the city of Albany to apply. So does it mean that the kind of things that they're expected to do should be different in order to attract more applications? Or is it partly a function of the fact that over the last couple of years, poetry in Albany has been at it hasn't had the public presence that it had prior to that because of the pandemic? The poetry readings that were taking place on a regular basis that were very well attended at the library have not been held in a couple of years, and as a result, that community is kind of dissipated, and it's been more difficult to stay in touch with them. I think that might be a factor too. But I guess what was being suggested was that the subcommittee get together and some way of kind of discussing the program from beginning to end, content as well as the submission process, and try and figure out how to make it more successful.
Because we have Steve Wasserman from the library, two poets, one who had been Becca Black, who'd been Poet Laureate, a teacher from Albany High. So there is that the requirements for the subcommittee were kind of ideal to get that kind of feedback, to ideas about events in the library, which, as Peter points out, if we had those events going on, there would be more of a discussion and some energy around the idea of a poet laureate. And those events still aren't happening, right?
Yeah, I think they're just beginning to open up the Edith Stone Room again.
But yeah, so it may not only be that there's not a lot of interest in poetry, but that there's not a lot of connection or energy around poetry right now.
Was there any concern on the panel expressed that the demands of the position did not align with the compensation that was provided?
No,
I think it's more, I don't think that the poet laureate is really about compensation, although that's nice, but I think it's more a poet being able to have that exposure, that have a greater audience and sort of visibility for the poet's own work, but also promoting poetry in Albany. And that's something that I think there's going to be more interest when events start happening again, and we can, or poets in the area can envision that kind of presence
But
and opportunity.
I mean, that brings up the point of compensation. Is the money for the program was not used to come from the public art and public places fund, but as we all know, that's no longer possible. So the Albany Community Foundation very generously said that they would fund it, but they had some reservations about the success of the program and whether that was the best use of their money. So that is going to be a challenge, for this program moving forward. Not just obtaining funding, but trying to figure out whether it's possible to get the funding from the city instead of going, begging to outside groups, and to be able to design a program such that, say, an outside group like Albany Community Foundation was willing to get behind it.
So currently, where this stands, as I understand it, the panel has made a recommendation to redefine the poet laureate. And what we're looking to do tonight is to have committee approval on redefining it, or are we, as the committee, trying to attempt to do that here and now?
No, I don't think that's quite right. The purpose of the selection committee was to decide whether to advance that candidate forward to the position of poet laureate or not. And the recommendation is that it not be done. And as a side note, which emerged from that discussion, is that seeing as that there is not going to be a poet laureate, it is a good opportunity now to rethink the program and see how it can be improved before we go out for another public round. Our basic task today, though, is to accept or not accept the recommendation of the panel, and then I suppose a second part of that would be to rethink the program.
Okay, and do you see the task of rethinking the program as falling to the subcommittee at a later time then? And tonight it's just whether or not to accept the decision of the panel in not accepting the applicant.
Well, as far as I know, the only real job is to deal with the recommendation of the panel to not advance the candidate. Whether you want to get into the role of the subcommittee now or later is, I think it's up to us. It makes sense to me to do it at the same time, but
because I think that's how it reads in the like, just to look at looking at the document here, it says the panel decided to not move the single candidate for the position forward. The panel also recommended that the position of poet laureate be redefined and that ways of improving the laureate's impact on the city be discussed before another call for applications is announced. It is the recommendation of the subcommittee that the candidate not be advanced and that the poet laureate position be reevaluated and redesigned with input from the local poetry community as part of the work plan, with a goal for presentation to the Arts Committee for approval later. So
right, you're right, Chair Gotch. It is spelled out more explicitly. You're right.
Slightly more explicitly. The question that remains, that I'm just trying to establish for the moment, is when we say that needs to be figured out later, it's unclear to me if we mean later tonight or if we mean down the road.
I would say down the road. Down the road.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Down the road.
Great.
Yeah. I agree with Peter that the only thing that we have to decide in tonight is whether to accept the committee's recommendation.
Specifically regarding the applicant.
Oh, yes, specifically regarding advancing the candidate or not.
Great. That's the kind of clarity I'm looking for.
Good. Okay. It's very easy. It's very easy to get it confused, I can see.
I will say though, the recommendation of the panel was not based on the suitability of the candidate for a position that at the time that did not yet exist. It was really looking at the suitability of the candidate for the poet laureate position as already defined in the submission. So I don't want the candidate, if they're listening, I don't want them to feel like ask them to apply for a position that, and then like, do a switcheroo. It wasn't like that at all. This was, they're like two separate discussions in a way.
Okay. I think that's great to clarify. Hopefully was clarified for the applicant as well.
Yeah.
So it sounds like we just need a motion now on whether or not to accept the recommendation from the panel regarding the applicant. Is there someone who would like to make that motion?
I'll make that motion.
Okay, you go ahead and state the motion as
The motion is to accept or reject the subcommittee's recommendation regarding not advancing the candidate for poet laureate.
Okay. And do we have a second for that?
I'll second the motion.
Okay.
So just to clarify, a yes is to accept the recommendation, not to advance the candidate.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes. So we're voting to accept the recommendation to not advance the candidate. So
yeah.
Yes means not advancing the candidate. All right. Joy, can you go ahead and I guess I should ask, we kind of skipped over public comment. Do we have public comment for this?
Currently, no public comment.
Okay. So Joy, I'm going to pass it to you then for a vote.
Okay. Chair Gatch,
Yes.
Member Bergman,
Yes.
Member Bowers,
Yes.
Member Goodman,
Yes.
Member Samansky,
Yes.
Member Shaw,
Yes.
Member Rexel.
Yes.
Great. So the motion passes. We've accepted the recommendation from the panel, and we will look forward to more from the subcommittee in the future regarding ways in which we can redefine the role of the poet laureate. All right. Should we move to the next item? Does that close this one out? Okay. Then we are at item 6.2, which is the sculpture loan program.
Thanks, Chairman. So first of all, I just want to acknowledge, I apologize for being absent for the last two meetings. I had a late summer promotion in my work life that kind of demanded some immediate changes to my time management. And so I've actually been out of the US for about 2.5 months. Ironically, I've been to the Eastern European border, Chairman Goodman, dealing with Ukrainian refugees in Poland and then elsewhere. So, for me, I've just been I've been missing in action a little bit. So my apologies for missing meetings. I think, as I understand it, we had been moving along a notion to reopen the sculpture loan program for other artists to come in. And at one point, we had debated or discussed increasing the stipend because that was one of the issues we identified with previous applicants. That got a little stuck, or at least had been paused, if I understand correctly, Keenan, with the city officials, in that they wanted to get through the election cycle and see if that memo that we want to increase the stipend should go back in front of the city council. So all that said is, I think that kind of work had been going on in the background in terms of how do we reopen it with what in terms of a stipend level that is increased or not. And I'm somewhat influenced by our recent discussion just now in the Poet Laureate program, because the stipend, I think, is an important factor in terms of the artist's ability to defray their costs for installation and setup. But money aside, are we on the same path in terms of the sculpture loan program as the Poet Laureate, where, it's not just a series of reopening the sort of tender, if you will, to have artists participate, but is there something else we need to reimagine? I don't know. So I'm kind of at this place. I'm trying to get re-engaged quickly now, and what I need to do to either get that back on track in terms of reopening the call for artists, as well as dealing with the city's review of our request to enhance the stipend. And so I'm seeking sort of input from this committee and from your other deliberations that I may have missed from the November call that may influence, those kind of tactical decisions going forward.
Okay, great. Thank you, Member Bowers, and welcome back also.
Thanks.
And congratulations on your promotion.
Yeah, I remember Goodman talked about Eastern Europe, and I literally was on the border of Poland and Ukraine, dealing with artists from Ukraine as well as just civilians, and so if we could put a Polish or a Ukrainian sculptor in Albany, I'm sure they would be thrilled. But anyway,
indeed.
Good idea.
I know that there are, again, a combination of factors. And as you said, I think the stipend is one of them. In our particular situation, with the most recent artist who pulled out of the sculpture loan program, what I've heard secondhand, not from the artist directly, is that they moved out of state, and those sculptures actually still, again, this is hearsay, but that those sculptures still do in fact exist in California, but that the costs of hiring crew and equipment to locate them to Albany, and then to still be responsible for maintaining them and then eventually removing them, that the compensation does not adequately address that. So they've decided it's not worth the trouble or the risk to continue with that. And I think that's going to be an obstacle that we're going to face fairly consistently with artists, that if something appears to be either A, not worth their time or effort, or B, that they stand to lose money in some way, or be exposed to risk in some way, that it's just not going to be worth it for them to participate. And that what we will likely end up with the sculpture loan program is that it'll be a de facto storage for people's sculptures who have made something big and don't have a place to store it and don't really care what happens to it. So if we're serious about attracting talented artists who are making really well-developed work, then I think it's like anything in life, that it's going to come with a cost. And whether or not we decide that that's a priority and that it's part of our mission to support both those artists and art in Albany, or whether we're simply trying to find the cheapest route through, I think that's what we have to determine.
Yeah, I think those are astute comments, because is it our goal to install public art in the sculpture form anyway, the sort of dimensional art that has permanence or non-permanence? Permanence requires a whole other level of review of why it's going to be there and for how long, how much it costs. I think the loan idea on paper makes sense for sort of new inventive artists or artists who are at a place where they can just rotate their work. But I think you're correct in that it just runs into the numbers game in terms of just actual installation, maintenance, and removal. And a lot of artists may find that a very hard burden to take on, even if we do raise the stipend to say 5,000, which is, you know, a fair amount of money, I should add. I don't think it's insignificant, especially for a small city. And so I'm just thinking out loud too, in terms of is there a modification to our thinking on public art and sculpture form anyway, that either makes it eye towards more permanent, so it has a longer duration and the cost can therefore be more absorbed, or it's more transactionary and temporal, so even less than 2 years. And what would that look like, and what would that be? And, you know, so I'm just wondering, do we want to explore that avenue as well if we're reimagining? Because I could envision a year from now, if I'm still on this committee, that, you know, we reopen it, we raise it to 5,000 even, you know, if the city approves, and we still are kind of back at square one, where artists either are dealing with that issue, Jeremy, you talked about, or, you know, something different. So I'm kind of just thinking this out loud again. And rather than following an autopilot of let's reopen it and try to get more artists in, and somehow the selection committee will find this perfect person and piece of work, I'm wondering if we're going to run into the same systemic issues. And there's no, I don't think there's a perfect solution. I think it's a solution that makes sense for the city right now. What we want to pay for, what we don't want to pay for, what public art means to us still. You know, I walk by the spiral ceramic piece we have up under the BART all the time. And, you know, I'm thankful the city has put that there with that artist. So I see the value in that. You know, it's just sort of trying to expand that, of course, so more citizens can see the value.
I think the duration is important. Duration often comes up in relation to what we can and can't fund through the public arts funding. So I think we arrived at that amount of time as a funding consideration. And Keenan might be able to chime in and provide some insight there.
So we should keep that as a good principle, as it's been debated before, and this is where we landed, and let's try to move through
the other concern is that it has taken an absurd amount of time to even place the one that we have, and people are not going to wait endlessly. You know, so if we reduced it to something like 6 months or a year, and it still takes us, I mean, how long is, Peter, you would have a good sense of how long has the process? It's been at least 3 years, because I've been on the committee for almost that long, and those works were already approved before I got on the committee.
Is that right? I had no idea.
It's been a couple of years.
Same here. You know.
I mean, getting the platforms in place and dealing with all that, that took a tremendous amount of time for reasons that are still
the poor concrete.
Yeah.
The pork. Yeah. Okay. So I think this is good feedback, though, in terms of, I mean, and it is understanding the, you know, the history there, and getting to pouring concrete takes a lot of time. I get it. So I think there's that infrastructure. We want to make sure we're getting some return on those things we've done before as, you know, predecessors. So with that in mind, I guess I'm back to the more tactical issue of, if we believe the stipend is a stumbling part for some artists, do we, you know, the memo I need to put forward, or the memo we need to generate for the city to review, I think that's kind of the next step to me, because I understand from the minutes last time, Keenan, as well, you know, we tabled it to post after the elections, so the elections are over, So we're in this period where we need to gather that evidence back and go back to the new council, correct?
Yeah, I believe that's correct. I think there's two big stumbling blocks. One is the amount of time it takes to actually cite a work once it's selected, and the other is convincing artists that it's in their best interest to loan that work in the first place.
Right. Right.
So just to give you, for instance, I teach sculpture graduate students who are doing exhibitions with institutions and with galleries who are creating work that could potentially go on loan. But they would not, they're not operating on that 2-year scale. So in terms of if it's going to cost them something to store that work for 2 years before it gets cited, and the work represents some cost to them where they're not able to sell it and they're forced to store it, they're much more inclined to actually get rid of the work or repurpose the work in some way or create new work than to say, I'm going to commit to a 2 or 3 or 5 year process where maybe it eventually gets shown.
Right.
There is an obstacle. At that point, we're looking for almost a very, very specific type of artist. This is an artist who creates public scale work and it also has the capacity to store that work already, and that work somehow doesn't have a life beyond their initial creation of that work. And in most cases, an artist who has the resources at their disposal to create large work and store large work is also typically active in circulating or selling that work as well. So those pieces are not hanging out for 2 years or 5 years, just waiting to go on a pedestal in Albany. So there has to be some mechanism in place, which I think comes from us working with the city to speed that process along. But the other enticement for artists is, and this is true of any exhibition, does the exhibition promote their work in a way that's going to help advance their career or help bring visibility to their practice? Right. And does the work, does the relationship with the patron allow them to sustain a professional practice and continue to make work? So if the program that we're providing them with doesn't have the visibility or the prestige to help advance their career, and also is not paying them some amount to make that workable for them, I don't think we're going to attract very many artists.
That's right.
Yeah, it's fascinating. On a side note, I just went to the Diego Rivera show in San Francisco, and just in that flourishment of period, those WPA promoted artists, back in the 30s and 40s, because their calculation, like you just said, was based upon, their work being in the eyes of the public or not being in the eyes of the public. And depending upon the commercial venue they were even commissioned for. And sculptures played such a unique, different part in that, murals and other work, but sculptures are definitely something that are out in the elements for a while. So there's something there that I think you're right, that it's a very special artist we're probably trying to attract, which is hard to define. And at the same time, in my mind, we're trying to delight and enthuse the general public with works, in terms of a surprise on a trail or on a city corner or wherever they're at, and to give them a moment of this piece that they can look at and enjoy. So I think there's a little reimagining. Maybe I think the stipend certainly still is an issue. And I think I'm just trying to understand, do I need to assemble that type of memo approach again that we just talked about for the poet laureate? What's the best mechanical avenue to get to the next stage with the council?
This isn't a solution, but it may be more of a question and thinking through the way that we're approaching it. I don't know how this would work exactly, but we're trying to imagine a number that's going to attract artists, and maybe the alternative way to do it, especially since we're at the stage where we have to put out another call, is to structure it in some way where artists are submitting a budget and a proposed work. And that would come before the committee to then decide if both the work and the budget meets the criteria that we have as a committee to decide what we want to see in Albany. I don't know exactly how to structure that. It can't, if we say it's completely open-ended, we're going to see proposals for $300,000. Really, I mean, I'm serious with that number.
Yeah,
that's not unheard of for public sculpture. So, and we don't want to waste anyone's time, and we don't want to waste our time. So, but I think also if we say up to $5,000, then the proposals that will come in will be exactly $5,000. So I don't know what the solution is there, but maybe there's something in that thinking that will inspire someone else to come up with an approach that might be useful here.
Okay, so what I can do is sort of put some thoughts down, and I'll communicate with Keenan and you, Chair, in terms of just getting that reopening of our, sort of request for applicants is the first step. And I don't want to be obsessed about the dollar amount, because I think that is creating sort of a drive towards just that issue. And so I'm just being inspired a little bit about thinking a little more creatively on the other issues that we're coping with. And the poet laureate as a proxy is just give me a sense of, okay, well, maybe I just don't need to be formulaic anymore about what we're thinking here. We need to actually be a little more creative and see where we can sort of expand that envelope. Because again, I was just hanging out with some folks in Oakland who are in public sculpture sort of realm or private sculptors as well. And there's folks out there for sure who are interested in displaying their pieces. As you said, Jared, I mean, they're dealing with their regular life issues as well. What's in storage, what's not. And so it's just, how do we fit the right Goldilocks sort of solution for this, at least that we can envision for now.
Mm-hmm. I think there can be a proactive approach of outreach to artists, to let them know that this is a potential opportunity, and to, on the committee, we do have the capacity to reach out and say, hey, I know you're a public sculptor. You've displayed works for the city of Oakland or Emeryville or wherever else. Albany is working on a sculpture loan program. What would that look like for you in terms of loaning work, and to then sort of use that as a baseline,
right?
And if we're developing those relationships, if we have enough of those relationships to get a sense of like what it would take, then we're also in a position. It's kind of reverse engineering it. Then we're in a position to put out a call and let those people know, to say, hey, look, we've had these conversations. It seemed like you might be interested. We've made the call official. I really hope you'll apply for it.
Great, will do. So my commitment is to put together a presentation for our next meeting that would outline outline. Sorry, Peter, you're going to say something.
Oh, I just, in my business, we have to, I'm a publisher, so we have to market our books. And everything has changed very much in the last 5-7 years as to how you communicate with people, and I'm just suggesting that if one of the goals is to have a compelling presentation, is to think somewhat in terms of graphic design, bullet points, making sure that the benefits of the program to the artists are stated very, very upfront in very, very short notes that are easy for someone to digest quickly visually. You know, the method of outreach is, and the look of the outreach is as important as the content.
Yeah, I agree. And I loved Member Shaw's presentation a couple months ago.
Yes, that's what I was thinking of.
Yes.
So, I definitely took inspiration and cues from that in terms of it being interesting to look at and fun to engage in. So I agree.
One of in terms of like putting that together, one of the big draws for an artist to display their work in Albany is that public sculpture contracts can be really lucrative, and it's a very particular path that some artists take professionally. And in taking that path, one of the obstacles to kind of getting in is to establish a track record of having produced public work with a city, and to have that work on display. And the sculpture loan program is a good kind of introductory.
Yeah, it's a bona fide way to do that for sure. Yeah, I think for emerging artists or even artists who are trying to break into that line for municipal commissions or commercial commissions, that's a big part. I agree.
I think that was one of the reasons behind the establishment of the program in the first place, knowing that there was a good halfway ground between actually acquiring an art on a permanent basis and having it as a loan program, where the artists the city would benefit from having these sculpture, but the artist would benefit by having the exposure and the right to repurpose that sculpture either to the city itself or to some other place once it had achieved maybe some notoriety.
Exactly. Member Bowers, have you looked at all into other cities' sculpture loan programs and kind of how they scaffold them?
Only anecdotally through different connections in the city of New Orleans. I have friends there who are involved. So different metropolitan settings, larger cities. But I haven't spent enough time trying to figure out the Bay Area, other than Oakland, which kind of has weird conduits into the mayor's office there. And so I don't have enough Bay Area sort of reference points, but other cities. Do you have recommendations, Chair?
Not. I mean, like a good starting point would be to look at neighboring cities. Look at Emeryville and look at El Cerrito. I don't know that El Cerrito. I don't know. Both of them have supported sculpture. Emeryville has supported sculpture, but I don't know if they've done it specifically in a loan program. But I think in the past when we've looked at a few of the other programs for the Arts Committee, I've gone down the kind of Google rabbit hole of looking at different California cities and how they set up their arts committees. And it might just require seeing if there's what other municipal sculpture loan programs are out there.
Yeah.
And the kind of funding that they put towards them and what kind of works they funded in the past. And it'd be good to also look at their turnaround time. What's their kind of production schedule from start to finish on a sculpture loan.
No, that's good advice. I'll take that. And I think I like the idea of Emeryville as well as over in Marin. I know a few people involved in cities in Marin County. So I'll definitely sort of reach out there too and try to get some sort of data on that.
I've made a contact over in Emeryville when looking into the murals program that they did a few years ago. So happy to share their contact.
Oh, great. Yeah, no, I appreciate that.
Okay.
No, I know the mayor a little bit, but whatever connections you have would be great.
Sounds good.
Okay. Any, I guess we should go to public comment if there's public comment.
No public comment at this time.
Okay. And are there any action items that we want to take tonight?
No, just to kick my butt into gear, get it going. So,
All right. Well, consider it kicked.
thanks. Appreciate that.
All right. Thank you, Member Bowers. We are going to move forward to subcommittee reports. We just heard Sculpture Loan Program. So next up is Fall into Haiku.
Great. Well, thanks to everyone who helped out, Member Bergman and especially Member Shaw, who very kindly accompanied me on a rainy Saturday to help install the signs. So everything is up. They went up weekend before last. There's a total of 57. There's 40 yard signs, 17 11 by 17 laminated signs that are in the big bellies. I think I think they will just stay up through Christmas and come down on like the 26th and 27th or so. So it's as far as I know, it's done. Everyone, Keenan, everyone's been notified, right? The poets and everything. So generally, what we've done in the past is after I gather up all the signs, bring them down to the community center, and then let the poets know that they can come and pick up their sign if it's there, hadn't been stolen or destroyed. I was telling Keenan earlier, one of the signs has already been defaced with obscenity on the sign in front of Sumitomo Bank, and it's possible we can just kind of block that out so the sign can remain in place. It's unfortunate. That's actually never happened before.
No, I was thinking of just getting some alcohol and a cotton ball and seeing if I can just, but I haven't done it.
I don't know that,
might just-
you could try. I mean, it's such a bizarre comment that someone put on it, but
Yeah, it's strange.
so anyway.
But there aren't others, so that's good. That's
Yeah, I mean, generally they're well treated and only lose a couple.
That's the power of poetry, right? It moves someone so passionately.
Yeah, that must be it.
But I did hear from Pam Lim, who was on the Poet Laureate committee, and one of her haiku was accepted, and there were about 7 students who she knows from, and some in her class whose haiku were also among the ones that are displayed. So she was very excited, and the students are very excited, and I think that's a great effect of the haiku project is how.
Yeah, it's nice.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, we couldn't accept them all. So, but it's not really a contest, It's
No, but
it's really just being some stuff that's up there that has a real local connection.
I like that there was a haiku about the bulb, and it's out at the bulb. So
yeah. I hope it's still out there. It was pretty windy when I was putting it out that day, so it might get blown away.
Is it at all possible to leave them up longer than just past Christmas?
Generally, it's been about 3 weeks. I mean, I kind of feel like that's a good amount of time. Otherwise, it becomes people get too familiar with it. It's nice to have something special, and it's nice to have it, especially between the holidays. So I'm inclined to take it down right after Christmas.
Okay.
But I will leave behind the materials that use, as well as a description of what I did to create them, and whatever the committee just wants to do with the the program from now on is up to them. So it's
But I really enjoyed reading and just the variations of the different ways that children, particularly children and youth, were interpreting this form and what they could do with it, and it was really that was exciting.
the ones I like are the ones that mention very, very local things, like, places to go to have food, and
Ajanta to Zaytun.
yeah, that's right.
Yeah,
Those are nice. Anyway, thanks everyone for all your help on this.
Thanks to you, Peter, for all of your hard work on this. In my mind, it's really one of the one of the really fantastic creative displays that we actually have in Albany. I know people look forward to it. They get excited about it. The kids like finding them and reading them and finding their own, and the ones that were done by their friends. And to have that visibility and kind of have that as something that people can look forward to, I think has been a real strength. It's always made me a little sad that it's not actually funded by the city of Albany through the arts program, because it seems like such a successful thing to point to. And
yeah, it's a real sore subject. I mean, but that's the city has made its determination.
Have you?
Anyway, it's something to fight for. I mean, I definitely think it's a real benefit to the city, I think, clearly, and I don't understand what their objection is.
It's I've spoken with the city attorney specifically about it, and the issue is duration. It's a duration.
Yeah.
It's a duration issue. And she even suggested, kind of put out there as a hypothetical, not as a direct solution. This is not her recommendation, but she put out there as a hypothetical, like if we were somehow, an artist was designing the frames in which the haikus go in, that could be a permanent, considered like a permanent work, and the haikus that end up in there could potentially, be a part of that project. But if the program itself is of a 3-week duration, or even at like a
if we were to take those poems and kind of reproduce them in a nice bound volume that would be available at the city library as an archive for decades to come, maybe that would be some way of qualifying. If the city is simply looking for a rationalization to make funding possible, that might be one way of doing it.
I do actually
very easy to do.
I do actually think that is a very real possibility. I think in our current ordinance, artist prints are included as a format, but I don't think artist books are. So we're a little bit, there's a little bit of a gray area between when does a book a series of prints or a folio?
See, well, it would be very easy, to like you say, to have an artist design a different background every year, have that sort of be part of the whole thing, designing the background on which the poems will lie. Once those are done, they become signs. They're put around the city, and then they're printed up. and slipped into into a book, like a large format book that's maybe hand bound and available for viewing. So, I mean, I could easily see something like that. And if that would satisfy the city, then that would be one way of extending the program, the next go round even.
I believe that's correct. There may even, I mean, just spitballing here, but there may even be a way to tie that into the poet laureate in some capacity, to expand the role of the poet laureate, to think of the poet laureate in collaboration with a visual artist, or that's a very specific type of artwork that we're soliciting. Are you handing the keys off to someone? Have you identified someone that's going to take over on the haiku program?
Member Bergman is on the subcommittee, so I will make sure that she has all the information. What I do is, I can do it because I have those skills in graphic design and printing, etc. So it's really easy for me to be a one-stop shop to get everything done, whether that's reproducible or not at the same rock bottom low nothing cost that I provided at is is another question. But I mean that's it's just part of the part of the expansion of the program, to make sure it can continue.
I don't know if I probably don't have the skills, but
it's in terms of graphic design work, it's not any graphic designer these days can do it easily. It's not very complicated, but I will provide a whole rundown of what's done with all the materials, and someone would find it very easy to pick up from that.
Okay, yeah, because I was thinking I have a child who's does very interesting art, and so who might I can't ask at the wrong time because no. But it could, or help, because we used to do art together a lot. But anyway, I'm kind of, I enjoyed it this year. It was easier because of the spreadsheet, and I actually kind of made a collection with kind of ages and themes and things, because I printed it out for my sister and she loved it. So, because she couldn't be here and I knew she wouldn't be able to handle the spreadsheet. So I was thinking, it would be great to make a book out of this. Yeah, so I could see that.
Mm-hmm.
I just want to say one thing before we move on, and that is about duration. And something like this is a tradition, and people look forward to traditions in your community. And this is an art tradition. And if you have it every single year, isn't that not duration? I don't understand that. That is a long term thing that people look forward to year after year after year after year. And I don't understand why that doesn't count.
And I wonder if that's why we got so many submissions this year, because people were really anticipating it.
That's right. That's right.
Could we just print out the spreadsheet with all the haikus on them? I don't know, bind it, not doing anything fancy.
The spreadsheet wouldn't be very, the spreadsheet has people, but to select the poems, I selected
for the purposes of getting public art funding, I'm asking if we can print the spreadsheet, perhaps bound it, and I don't know, laminate it. Somehow it can exist somewhere within City Hall,
I mean, it's really easy to just take the actual signs and reduce them down in size, and those could all be printed out in color and be a nice little book. Because I mean, they're already, basically they're already printable.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, we're definitely, I mean, in terms of the ordinance, artist prints are covered. I think the art, there's a number of different arguments that we could make effectively, and that we could point to existing works of art in the contemporary art canon that we could identify with the Fall into Haiku program. What it requires ultimately is that someone takes it on, or a subcommittee takes it on and makes it a priority to do that. And this is going to be the rule with everything. You know, it's things are going to get done by people who do them, and then it just falls to us to do them. Because it's not going to fall to Peter anymore. So, so
how about it, you guys?
But now I have a connection with the high school, and you know, a teacher who's also a poet and is really excited about this.
This could also, you know, I mean, not to shove it off over to them, but this could also easily be a high school project where a class takes this on as their responsibility to administer it as well. Potentially. Or it could be a collaboration between high school students and UC Berkeley students. You know, that would be another way to think about moving it in a different direction. I do think that we can be creative about how we approach it, and I personally like Member Shaw's suggestion of just printing out the Excel spreadsheet and making that the work. But we would still need, I think, even in doing that, we would have to figure out how to assess who the lead artist is, or how to identify that in the funding structure of the program. Do we have, this is, we don't have public comment for this because this is subcommittee reports. We'll have one public comment for the entire agenda item. Any final comments from committee on the Fall into Haiku?
Yeah, I had one, which I've mentioned this already to Peter, but you know, walking around last year before I joined the Arts Committee, seeing the poems is something that just brought me a lot of joy, and it's one of the reasons that inspired me to join the committee. So it felt a bit like an annual gift, and I just want to say thank you to Peter for hammering away. It essentially, I think it took Peter an entire weekend. I was only there for a few hours on a very rainy weekend. And so, yeah, just want to say thank you. I was also just going to share one of my favorites that I put up. Here's an image. Everyone loves the Albany turkeys, including me. Are the turkeys feral or just plotting their revenge? Nobody truly knows. Age 16. Yeah.
Oh, hey, that reminds me, Keenan, were you going to put up the map? Are you able to do that?
Yeah, I can do that right now.
Yeah, just tell your friends that if they're looking to find the haiku, they're all on this Google map on the city website.
Yeah, and you click on them and you get the poem.
Yeah.
So it's great.
Yeah. And I think.
What's the difference with the yellow and the red?
Oh, let's see, the yellow are the big bellies and the red are the yard signs.
Okay.
There's an explanation at the top. There's somewhere in the.
Yeah, to answer the poet, I think the turkeys are going to take over eventually.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah. Yeah, we've got an explanation there.
Great. I love that.
But I was thrilled that, you know, there's so many on Solano, and there are about 3 just around the corner from me. So
I love the number 1. Someone made it all the way out there. You know?
Yeah. Right. That's the one on the bowl, Brian. Yeah, so there's out in the Terrace Park, there's a couple by the tot lot on Dartmouth, there's a couple on Memorial Park, and along the Ohlone Greenway. Everything else, oh, and by the by City Hall and by the community center.
I'm really sorry that I wasn't able to help with putting up the signs, because I had a kind of a gig playing for a kind of an Advent event, and I was supposed to play.
Oh yeah, well don't worry about it.
So I was sort of doing two things at once, but
I got my daily walk in for sure.
Oh, I bet. Yeah. Yeah. In the rain. But
Well, thanks again for everyone's hard work on this, and especially Peter for taking this on for so many years. And I really hope it continues.
Yeah, I do too.
All right, we are going to move to the mural subcommittee. Is there a report?
Yeah, I am happy to give a report. Just give me a second. I'll share my screen. It's kind of just easier to talk alongside slides so people can see what I'm talking about. But some good progress. Probably the most important one is that we did have a positive conversation with Bart, who is open to putting art on the concrete pillars on the Greenway. The team at Bart unfortunately does not have funding that they can provide, but Bart does not have was surprising to me, doesn't have a public arts fund, and so it'd be funded by the city of Albany. But if we manage to do this, we'd also be the first city that has collaborated with Bart to put art on the Bart pillars. And so based on that, let me see here. We now have 3 out of the 5 priority sites that we targeted open to putting murals up, which is pretty good momentum. And still trying to get in touch with the final 2 sites, Ungan and Raven and Rose. If anyone eats at Ungan often enough, we're going to say our hair done at Raven and Rose, maybe you have an inn that you can help me out with. As a next step, we have also kind of batted around different structures for how to approach the business owners and the role that they should play in the mural selection process, because essentially, if you're a business owner and it's your wall, you probably do want to have a say in what is going up on your wall, and not have the arts committee and city council just mandate what goes up. So based on that, I think what we want to do is actually work with each of the site owners to identify a certain theme that they would be interested in, and also have them have a seat, or let them have a seat on the selections panel as well. That seems like the most sort of pragmatic, path of least resistance to actually get that done. But this is obviously going to roll into the new year. We do need some more funding, because I think, based on looking at the current work plan, the most that's sort of accessible right now is about $20K. So I think, assuming I'm still a member of the arts committee sometime next year, I would probably move forward to request additional funding from city council, and also see what resources the city has to help us get in touch with these final 2 sites. But kind of just speaking to the overall process, securing budget, we've been having conversations. We'd want to kick off the RFP process. We'd go through the selections process, which I just mentioned. And then we'd have conditional approval and community outreach. So yeah, that's about it from me. Any questions so far?
No questions from me. That's great news. We've talked about it prior to this meeting. Congratulations on getting BART to the table. It's really fantastic, and hopefully we can move forward with that and some of the other locations. Member Goodman?
Member Shaw, were we going to mention the dissolution of the EDC? And we're not. We had been working with their subcommittee, but that committee is being sunsetted. So I think we're kind of on our own now. Is my understanding. Is that right?
Yeah, Kenny, do you have any insight into that?
I actually do not have any insight on that, unfortunately.
Okay. So, the information that Peter mentioned is also what I know, which is the EDC, which is the other, committee that we've been working with, is being sunsetted. So, I've been collaborating pretty closely with Deirdre, who's on that committee, and she's been a fantastic partner to work with. And so I think we'll probably look for ways in the future to continue to collaborate with her. What that looks like, I don't know quite yet, but we'll figure something out.
All right. Any other comments or questions for the mural subcommittee? Thanks, Member Shaw. Next up is Creative Justice Art Project. So we have an artist. We've selected an artist. There has been some communication between the artist and the city and myself to figure out next steps. Currently, what we are looking at is city staff requested a meeting with the artist to discuss the duration component. Keenan, anything you want to say about that process at this point in terms of what city staff is looking to identify or ascertain from that meeting, or what those next steps look like from there? I know we have to give the artist guidelines so that they can present the work to the public for public comment. Can you just give us a rundown of what that process looks like from your end?
Yeah, of course. So as discussed during, I think, this the selection panel, there was that component of permanency as well as semi-permanent with this art and project itself due to the nature of the project. Things can hopefully moved in the right direction in that sense, but we are looking to talk with the subcommittee, with the artist, to kind of go over those things we're possibly looking for, and if there's any wiggle room or anything that could change possibly, but we're not making that decision as well. But yeah, the next process and step would be for community involvement as well as outreach. And finalists for the program do get a stipend of $500 to help complete this and provide it for the public to review and give out public comments basically on the project itself. So that I believe that's the next few steps that we're going to go through for this project. And
do you know, has the artist been supplied with the necessary information to develop the public facing component at this time? Do they know what they have to do?
I believe that's going to be talked out at the meeting itself.
Okay. And is that in regards to the content of the project, or in terms of, like, is there already something in place from the cities and that they like the when and where this gets displayed in the community center, correct? Is that
correct? So the public comment process, we do display it for 60 days at our community center for anybody in the public to come and make a public comment on the project itself.
okay? Great. So hopefully, what we are looking at moving forward is that I guess like the earliest that we would see the end of public comment is probably the end of February. And then it will come back to the Arts Committee for review to look at the public comments and assess the project before making a recommendation to City Council. And I think that's all I have on that. Any questions there? Okay. Next up is the Community Center Foyer Art Gallery.
Oh, hello. I just met today with the next artist who will be putting up her work on the 6th of January, and her opening will be on the 8th. And the current exhibit will be coming down on the 30th. I think for the gallery and for all of what we're talking about, the issue of supporting artists and how much money they need, how much support they need is very important. I also think that Albany has not been identified as a place for artists. I know that this community is very supportive of the arts. It really is. And there are a lot of artists who live here. But I don't think the city in general or the school district is in supporting the arts. And so it's very difficult to identify this place as a place where you want to exhibit your work. On the other hand, we've made a big leap, to bring in more people to this process. And so what I did was the 3 people that were not able to be considered last time for our gallery, I've been in contact with them, and they are going to resubmit their work with more examples of their work, with more knowledge of what is happening. And so we will be voting on those next month, when the next meeting is next month. So we'll see how that works out. They've a lot of them didn't realize what was involved and how much money it was, or how many pieces of art you would need to fill that gallery. So they're all going to resubmit, and we've got 2 sections open for us to vote for, as well as for the end of the year. It's been planned to have a group show for emerging artists. So I'm going to have to get the applications for that out, and I'm going to be sending them probably to, high schools and colleges, community colleges, younger people, to see what we can do. We'll have to decide on that sometime, probably this summer, maybe June. But it all looks pretty good. Everybody got questions?
Yeah, any questions, comments? Thanks for the update, and we'll look forward to seeing more at our next meeting.
Okay.
Last up is the Art and Public Places Ordinance. Polo Art Program we've already discussed. So Art and Public Places Ordinance Subcommittee. We haven't met this past month, but there's definitely some issues circulating around a number of the other projects that we're taking on that affect the Art and Public Places Ordinance. So I think we'll circle back around as needed and look at ways in which we can either work with the ordinance or define areas that need to be adapted. That is all of agenda item 6. Before we close it out, do we have any public comment on the whole of agenda item number 6?
No public comment.
Okay. Then that brings us to agenda item number 7, which is future agenda items. And of course, if anyone has an agenda item that they think of later on, you can always bring it to Keenan at a later date. But does anyone off the top have an item that they would like to see put on next month's agenda? Okay. And do we have any public comment on this item?
No, we do not.
Okay, great. Then our next meeting is Monday, January 9th. Same bat time, same bat channel. So I will see you next year. And hopefully we can make some art happen and everyone has a really wonderful holiday break.
Yeah. Happy holidays, everyone.
Thank
Thank you, Peter.
You.
Bye.
Bye.
Thanks.